Hello, Brother Crafting family and sewing. I'm Angela Wolf, and we have May Flaum today. I am so excited. Hi, May.
Hi, good to see you.
So I know that we're going to be working on Valentine's, but I just want to let everyone know, say hi, say where you're from. We are live streaming on Brother Crafting, YouTube and Facebook pages, and we'll be right back. So exciting. I always love seeing the ScanNCut thing. So May, how are you? I'm very excited because I was looking at our topic for today, Valentine's, and I was like, oh my gosh, it is February.
So actually, yes, we're going to have fun. And actually, we're going even beyond that topic because what we're really going to dig into is there are some built-in designs. No matter what ScanNCut model you have, there are built-in designs that can be layered, and some of them are more geared towards, say, quilting or sewing, and some of them are layered, but you can also use them in lots of different ways. So if you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to make Valentine's, you still need to stay tuned because we're going to talk about card making with some of these designs that maybe you haven't considered before.
I think that's awesome. All right, so what would be the supplies that they need for this project?
So this would be up to you. Everything we're going to do today, you would have, I think papers would be basically paper and glue would be your must-have supplies. Everything else besides the ScanNCut is going to be optional depending on what you have, depending on what you use. I'm going to work with a standard mat today because that's the mat I have, but also this standard mat has been used. I think I've been using this for about a week now. So it's got a little bit of use to it. And I point that out because some papers can be a little bit delicate. And when you've got a little bit delicate paper, sometimes the standard mat can be a little much for it. So I don't recommend, if you have a brand new standard mat, I recommend using materials that are either heavy, like I just cut some felt on mine yesterday, the heavier materials that need it, or just being a little bit cautious with things that can get stuck if it's too sticky.
I think that's like the best tip we're going to get all day. We're actually, there's going to be a lot more, but that is such a good thing because I did get a new mat and I went to put some paper on there. I was following one of your last projects and it was really stuck. So great tip there, May.
And I just point that out because once and it depends on what I use it for. If I'm using a standard mat for vinyl, it's going to stay brand new sharp for sticky for a very long time because the vinyl, you're never actually touching material to it. You're touching a transfer sheet to it. And that just means that it's just staying completely pristine and you're half cutting, which means there's no blade marks touching the mat to change things up. So it does depend on what you cut, how fast, how slow the mat, how long it lasts, and also how long until you have to clean it. I cleaned mine off this morning because I forgot to put a cover sheet on it, the dust cover on it last night. That's okay. I've been making up a storm. And actually, Angela, I did not make the skirt. But I am I'm using my machine and I am embroidering Encanto characters.
Oh my gosh, is that
on
cute?
My skirt. Right? So that's Louisa. And then I'm going to add, there's like a floral swirl Encanto design I'm going to add on either side of her. So it'll just be at the bottom of my skirt, a little bit of hand stitched. Oh. A little bit of hand stitched fun, a little bit of Encanto magic there. I was just deciding if I was hand embroidering or letting the machine do it. And I decided I'm going to just let the machine do this one for me. I love my hand embroidering, but sometimes I like to do that. So I've been making for myself. Apparently I'm doing a 5K and we're all doing like different princess themes. So I got the ScanNCut out. Oh, and I got my Rapunzel file, but then I also added rhinestones around the edge.
Oh my gosh,
sparkly too.
So cute, man. You're running a 5K?
No, I'm going to be walking a 5K.
Well, either way,
Let's be realistic. Let's be
you're gonna
realistic.
too.
But it'll be cute. It'll be fun. And then this is not done yet, but this is going to be a luggage tag tutorial for Brother Crafts. So it's actually turning out exactly perfectly how I want it to turn out, which never happens. So I'm super excited about that. That'll be coming to Brother Crafts. Yeah, it's projects galore here on the desk this week. And I'm like, I had to like clear everything out so we could play today because everything is all over. There's so many different things going on, but it's so much fun.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I can see everybody commenting. This is so much fun. By the way, Brother Crafts has their own blog in case you didn't know that. Yes. And May has a ton of things on there. I can't wait.
Oh, I do. And there's more coming every month. And I know they've got a whole bunch of projects from me in the queue, so to speak, coming. So we've got lots of fun to be had. So let's go dig in on the machine and let's start more new projects.
Let's get rolling on the projects. Wait, let me bring there you go.
So the model I'm working on is the XDX 230Di, which is the newest model. But I always point this out to you guys. If you ever see any of our ScanNCut tutorials, you may or may not have the same patterns built in. The patterns can vary, but the way the machine functions, so all of how we're doing this is going to be exactly the same. So no matter what tutorial you're watching or how we're doing things, it's always going to be exactly the same how it works, which I think is really nice because you can just watch whatever you want to watch and then go to your machine. And no, you may not have all the same patterns, but you will be able to create or recreate similar things. Okay, so there's so many patterns that I feel like get underrepresented or just not really looked at as much, and we're just kind of taking a look around. I'm going to do this one today. And usually this is a sewing. Usually this gets cut with fabric and quilted or sewn. So that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do, let's see, 3.85 sounds good to me. So we're going to do that size. And when you pick one of these patterns that has multiple parts, it's going to show you all of the different parts that there are. And you're just going to select one and say, okay, if you're thinking, but I thought we were doing Valentine and this is a flower. I promise it will all come together. It always does. Okay. And then I like to go in order when I can, just so that I'm not getting confused. Okay, so there's C, and there's D. Okay, so I'm just going to stretch these guys out. I'm going to put them out to one in kind of each. A lot of times when I'm doing this, I'll kind of put one in each 6-inch square, so to speak. And then we're going to pull out. So we're going to do, I think we'll do 2 or 3 cards. We'll see how time goes. We'll see where this takes us. You guys know how we get rolling every month, and you never quite know how far can we go. Let me pull my papers out here.
Hours. I honestly think that you and I could spend an entire day crafting.
I think we could spend a whole week and not run out of ideas, or I think we'd still keep going with inspiration and different ideas. Okay, so we'll do a flower. So that's a clear acetate sheet. We'll do that guy.
I love those colors.
That guy. So I'm just kind of pulling out different. I need 4 papers. So I'm just looking at what do I have and what do I like together. I already pulled out a bunch, but I'm feeling like if we had, I think that one will work. Yeah, that one will work. Okay. So we have more, and we'll dig into more, but we need 4 different materials for these guys. And what I am going to do, I can measure and cut if I would like to. So I could get out my my paper trimmer and do this really fancy, but for this one, what I'm really going to just do is just take a chunk here out of the corner, because I know I need at least 3 or 4 inches, but I don't need a full 6 inches. So when it's kind of vague like that, a lot of times I will just take my scissors and chop. And here, this is what I was telling you. This is an acetate material.
That's really, May, when you were lifting that up, I was like, you can see through that. That is the coolest paper ever.
So we have got 4 different, so 3 of these are paper. The acetate is about the same weight and thickness as these particular papers. So we're not going to worry about, and I'm just over here setting things on my mat. We're not going to worry about cutting it separately because it is, I've done this quite a few times and it is just about the same thickness as the papers that I'm using. I'm using very heavy cardstock pattern paper. So we have everybody on our mat. We're going to load our mat. Okay. And then we're going to scan our mat. So this is just taking a picture. I always think of it as asking my ScanNCut to take a picture of my materials. And it only takes a second. It just goes right on through and pops right on back.
A great way to save on material, big time.
It is. The other thing this is going to let me do is now I can see exactly where the different patterns are. So if I want, like, for example, if I want a leaf to show or don't want a leaf to show on my petal, I can move this around until I'm happy with where that is. Or if I want more dots to show or less dots to show, I can really play with this and play with the placement. And am I happy with it? Do I like it? Is it what I wanted? Is it not what I wanted? And then if I go into edit, object edit, here, what I can do is I can rotate. So if, for example, I really like something, but I don't quite like the angle, I can adjust my angles here to get just exactly what I want out of this. And the same thing here. So if I want, let's go this way. If I want a certain angle on things, I can certainly get that. And once we're happy with it, we're going to say okay. And it's, you can see it's going to cut all over the place. Let's see. All right, so it is going to cut and it's only going to take a minute. And we'll be ready to assemble. So I really like looking at the patterns that really are, I suppose I would say, more aimed at sewing. Because I think a lot of them, like this one, if you find a pattern where like the seam allowances are built in and it might be problematic because it's not quite the shape, you know, I know, Angela, I know you know what I'm talking about. Some of the patterns that you would cut if you were meaning to use fabric, there would be like, it wouldn't quite be the right shape because you're going to be stitching. So I always take a look at those and make sure, is it going to cut out the shape that it says, or is it going to cut out, I just take a look there, is it going to cut out the shape that I want, or is it going to cut out with like seam allowances and maybe funkiness that won't work for what I'm trying to do? Let's see here.
I'll bet you there's a few people listening right now that said, wait a minute, you're telling me the ScanNCut will cut out designs with seam allowances? Yes, it does.
It does, and it will. Okay, so we are all good. The only thing that I have here, and this is something that you can sometimes run across, so I'll show you guys. If I had left this alone, I would have, and we're just going to click finish because we don't need more parts. So if I had left this on the mat, I would have just recut it, but I didn't realize this. So this has some kind of a funky, and I'm not sure. There's some kind of a funky film here, and I think it's supposed to come off. So let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. So this has some kind of like a funky film that I didn't realize it had, which kind of like tripped things up, but I think it did cut. I just, when this happens where there's maybe something that didn't quite cut correctly, it got bunched up. When I pulled it off the mat, this had gotten bunched up. So it still cut perfectly, but I already pulled it off the mat, so I can't ask the machine to recut it. And if that ever happens, like you can see, I'm not even cutting this. I'm just using my scissors to guide to make sure nothing tears. I'm really big on maximizing the use of my materials and not wasting. So if I ever have something where it happens and I go, well, it's perfectly cut, it's just that something, you know, something didn't quite go right or something wasn't quite the way it should have been. I always see if I can help it along at all before I just go, oh, well, throw it away, throw it away, get the next one. I always try to see, well, can we make it work? Is it going to be okay? Or is this really an end of the road kind of a disaster? Okay, so let's take a look at size-wise. Let's take a look at what that looks like here. We've got our, my ScanNCut a little more there. It's okay, so we've got that. How cute is this? How cute.
That's really cute. It's amazing seeing 4 pieces of paper that I was trying to think, like, how in the world is this going to go together? And you never cease to amaze me, May. It turns out amazing.
Well, you're really going to like this next part here. This is going to get real fun. So this, I like, when I do Valentine stuff, it just kind of depends on my mood. If I'm going to do a lot of like hearts, or if I'm going to make it a little more springtime, because I feel like by the time we get to Valentine's Day, we're all wishing for spring. We're all, whoop, that's not quite going to work. Okay, so I got to turn it the other direction because it's not quite tall enough, and I want this guy to go all the way up. Okay. And this guy, let's see. So this guy, the very tip is going to cut off, but I don't mind. If you mind that the very edge is going to cut off, all you would need to do is get a bigger card. I don't mind, though. I'm fine with that. Yeah, but sometimes I feel like by the time I hit Valentine's Day, I want flowers. Like I want flowers, I want spring. And then this one, we're not really going to put very much adhesive. I'm just going to put a very small amount here and a little bit here because it will kind of show. Okay, and I don't love that actually. I'm going to move these around a little bit. Okay, so the adhesive I used is permanent, but we should be able to kind of play around a little bit with these as far as spacing if we want it spaced a little different. And then I'm going to just trim off there. And this is a great design for leftovers because if you've got little leftover bits and pieces, this will work. It doesn't need very much. And I feel like this is a design that whenever I use it, I love it. And then I say, why am I not using this all the time? All right, so we have that. And now we're going to get out, let's see, what do we think? Do we like that color?
I like that. I can see everybody, some people are eye spying in your studio, so I had to bring you back up.
You go darker, I think nice and dark pink there. All right. We have a guest appearance today.
Oh, look at this.
We have a guest appearance. I don't often take this out, so I'm going to move this. We're going to move this camera just a little bit here. Okay.
Got the guest appearance with the sewing machine.
The guest appearance is the sewing machine, and it's funny because I use it all the time with my paper crafting, but we don't usually use it here with the ScanNCut on the show. And I'll tell you why. It's because it's a big old pain to relocate it from where it is and where its plug is. But I happen to be cleaning behind the shelving unit where the sewing machine plugs in. So the shelf that is next to it that hides its plug is out away from the wall, which means what? It means that I actually can get to the plug to unplug it, to move it. And I thought, let's see, let's do it. Why not?
That's a bonus.
And I had to take it off of embroidery mode anyway because I have some repair sewing to do. And the girls were like, okay, you sew enough. You've been doing enough Encanto embroidery. We need some things fixed, please. Please take it off embroidery mode and, please fix our jeans, please. So,
hey, May, what sewing and embroidery machine is that?
So this is the SE 1900.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And somewhere I have my, I'm throwing things now. See, this is the other reason is I get my machine in here and it's, okay. It starts.
No, I'm just laughing because you were talking about moving it around. So my mom, she always brings her sewing machine down to the kitchen table. And I would love to ask all the viewers today, where is your favorite place to sew? Because some of us have little sewing rooms, but the favorite place seems to be the dining room table. It almost
So
wins
mine is, I have a desk and it's at the window. So I just sit, I go and hike. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen my hiking photos. We saw baby cows. So there are right now in the winter, they put cattle on the hills because it keeps the grass, because here winter is green and summer is dead. Here's the opposite of some other places. Like in the winter is when it's green and beautiful here. So the grass grows, the cows eat it down, and it helps for fire prevention and stuff like that in the summer and fall. But what surprised me a couple of days ago on my hike was this year they put mama cows who are out there giving birth, and we're stumbling across baby cows, and they're so cute. But my window looks out at these hills that I hike. So like I like to sit there and sew, and I've got my view of my hills, and it's just very peaceful. And I love it to being where it is, but it's very much permanent. This machine does not move. So I have it set at, let's see, it says width. Let's see, we're over here. Well, you guys can't really see. I can't move it that much. Width 3.5 millimeters, length 4.0 millimeters. So my only rule when we're doing paper sewing is I do not try. That's correct. I do not try to have big stitches. I do not expect it to be perfect. Or excuse me, do not try to do small stitches because it's paper. So it's not going to move and be forgiving the way fabric is. Right? It's not going to. Once we punch a hole in paper, we punched a hole in paper. So because of that, and I also move very slowly. And some of you, we're on craft, so not all of you sew, but I move slowly like this because, number one, I am very much a craft sewer, and I sew sometimes and I have fun with it, but I would not consider myself a great at sewing person by any means. So I'm showing you, I'm going nice and slow, and the reason is very much by going nice and slow, and then I can lift this up and move it around, right? With my needles down, guys, you can move it around. You don't have to worry, is it going to be a problem, or is it going to move? No, the needle is going to pin my paper right down. So I just always tell people nice and slow and big stitch, because that way, if there's a problem or if something doesn't work, you're going to know before it's a problem, because you're just taking it nice and slow. And I should have done more back stitch on that one. That's okay. I also don't really stress back stitching on my paper, and I will show you why, because we'll do one more back. When we're working on paper, okay, trim you off, I can put glue. We're doing paper, not fabric, so I can put glue on here. I am also going to be putting, and I won't do it yet, but we're going to be putting adhesive here and putting a piece of paper over this. So there will be adhesive holding things down on the back, and then glue can pin things down on the front. So you really do not have to worry about if your sewing is just perfect on your paper.
Oh, sorry about that, May. I was actually looking so closely. I have a quick question for you, though, because someone was just asking, what size needle are you using for that?
I'm using whatever needle it was that was in the machine. It really, guys, it really is not particular. It really doesn't matter. This is just, and I can't think of needle sizing off the top of my head, honestly, because I just have a package of standard range, just the standard sizes. What are the standard size, like for usual, Angela?
Yvette says she was asking if using a 9. I would probably recommend using an 11 or a 12, just because you can. So the larger the number, the bigger the size of your needle, the bigger the holes you're going to get. So if you want to have like really accented holes with your stitching, go up to like 14, like a denim G needle or something like that. But
okay,
11 or 12 should be fine.
I think, and I always get confused because my hand embroidery needles, it goes opposite, and my seed beads, it's opposite. The small seed bead numbers are the big seed beads, and the small embroidery needles are big. So I always am like, I don't know, it's the standard way. I don't know.
That one confuses me every time, so I am with you on that. But yeah, so
I get confused. But you know what, Angela? Now that you're saying that, I think 10 or 11 is probably what I have in the sewing drawer. I think it's a 10 or 11. But I really just because the sewing that I do like my machine embroidery, especially. Really, I like my Star Wars and my Disney machine embroidery. See, we're just going along, right? We're just chatting. It's just nice and smooth. And the other thing, if you don't do sewing very often, I feel like if you just go nice and slow and move as needed, between stitches. Now you hear the noise there. That's not a problem. It's just that this is thick plastic now, right? We're on thick plastic. We're not on paper anymore, and you can hear the difference.
I would have to say, if I was on the other side of the room teaching a class, I'd be like, who is doing something not correct?
Who is being naughty? It's me. So the other thing about paper stitching going nice and slow is when you're going nice and slow, if there's a problem, you can catch it before it's a big problem, before you've ruined a project. You can catch whatever it is. And it's making that noise because remember, we just barely tacked this acetate down. So the acetate is flapping is what's happening. Every time the needle pops out of it, it flaps. And it's not a problem. It's okay.
A different paper. I see somebody asking, if you do something wrong, you're going to have holes in your paper, just like faux leather. Like if you sew this, you're going to have holes with a needle. I mean, with thread or without a thread, you're going to have a hole.
That's correct. So to my way of thinking, the slower I go, the less chance of mistake, or at least big mistakes, the less chance I have of making a huge error, and the easier it would be to fix if I did. And then I usually just go back stitch like 2, just so it doesn't start coming apart right as I'm dealing with it here. All right, and then I think we'll switch to yellow for the center, just because the way I organize my thread, and I finally did change. So do you keep your thread in boxes, Angela, or do you have it up like
on the wall? I do a combination of things. I have some on the wall. I have some of my embroidery thread in boxes with labeled bins, serger thread in drawers. And then I have some embroidery thread over here on the wall because brother had those really nice wall hangings. And I know that they can get dusty, but they're so pretty. And for me, I just blow a little air on it every once in a while and dust her off.
I like it on the wall. The problem is my sewing desk is at the window, so there's no
and
wall.
I'm looking at your wall. And you don't have
the sewing desk is at the other end of the room where it's just window. The whole corner is window. And what was happening is having it on the desk doesn't work because then I end up knocking it over all the time. And I had it in the closet over here. I had it, I screwed the wall that you could put on the wall. I screwed it into the wall and it was in the closet. But then I'm having to walk all the way across the room for every time I need thread. So I ended up going to the box.
Oh, look at that.
And I got to tell you, I wish I had done this many years ago. I feel so silly. I wish I had done it many, many years ago because it sure is nice to have the box that I have it by color. So it's like, okay, well we have, and that's why I said I don't mind. I don't have to go get another box because pink and yellow is in that half of the rainbow. So it's together in the same box. So I can switch to yellow. And I'm actually using, I mostly have embroidery thread because most of the time when I'm sewing in color, it's because I'm doing a machine embroidery. So most of my machine thread is embroidery thread, but I find for the paper stitching, it's fine. It's fine and it's pretty. And I almost feel like the slickness of the embroidery thread versus like a cotton thread. I feel like the slickness helps through the paper versus others. I almost feel like it's kind of a similar idea.
You know, that box that you have that's see-through reminds me kind of like one of my fishing boxes. I like that because you can see through it, but you know, you just made me think of something. I usually have like 4 or 5 spools on the side of my machine and everything's kind of falling off and, you know, making a mess. If I have a box like that, I can have it all setting right there.
Oh, yeah, and this one, it does have the spool.
That's nice.
It does have the spools, but being me, of course, I've got about twice as many things of thread in there as there are spools.
I was wondering why some were upside down. You really found a way to fill that up.
Well, they were, with all the supply chain stuff going on, they were sold out.
Oh.
And I couldn't get a third box. I thought 2 boxes was plenty. Turns out not so much. I needed 3. And so I had to wait for the third box, and I just finally got it last week. So I'm now going to be able to adjust. And I didn't point this out, but there are little marks on your sewing foot for anyone who doesn't sew a lot or doesn't realize this. And it makes it really nice if you use those to kind of guide yourself where the edge of your paper, or, well, yeah, in this case, paper is. I feel like it makes it really nice to make sure that I have at least some consistency. Okay.
May, you're going to have a photo of the beginning of just those handful of pieces of paper and this right here. This is like, oops, those 3 pieces of paper. Looking at that compared to what this is turning out like, look at that. That is so stinking cute.
Isn't that cute? So come here, sewing machine. You can get out of the way now. Come on down. Out of the way. Okay. So now we have that. And now I will, my poor paper trimmer is always just shoved on the ground. I feel like it's the unsung hero. So let's see. Let's do there. So I always, if I have a standard card, I will cut it down, but I will wait until after I'm done designing. And this has a little imperfection here, but we're not going to worry about that. And I'll show you. That's just from moving it around. We don't have to worry about that, though. So I'll show you how we're going to deal with that. But first, let's see. We have, I don't think this paper scrap is going to be quite big enough. So we'll have to get that paper.
While she's doing that, I see somebody asking, what is a good beginner sewing and embroidery?
So the one I have, I would definitely recommend the SE 1900 because I feel like one of the mistakes that gets made, and I'm one that made it, I'm just measuring here, we're 4 by 4.5. Okay. One of the mistakes that gets made a lot is you think that you want less machine because you're new. However, a lot of times the machines that are like more inexpensive or more basic, sometimes if you get too basic, I feel like it's harder to be a beginner and use that machine that doesn't have some of the features that kind of help you along. So right. I know I really like this one. I know Brother has a lot of models. I like one. So this one has a 5x7 embroidery hoop, which I really like because I can do almost all of the patterns. I can't do really large ones, of course, but almost all of the regular patterns that you might purchase or you want to use, I can use them. Okay, so I'm just kind of adding some adhesive to any loose threads. And this is what I was talking about when you're doing paper, you know, you're going to literally tape your threads down so you don't really have to worry about them. And then this also has adhesive on it. Let's see, we'll do it this way.
Great way to cover up those stitches.
Yep. So there's different, and it's not going to quite, I didn't quite cut it big enough to cover the very top, but I'll be very honest, I'm really not worried about it because I can always add, like if I want to add a little decorative something or I could have the ScanNCut cut out a heart, or if if it's a basic shape and I've already, so the ScanNCut will cut these hearts out for you. And actually, was it last month or the month before? If you go back in our episodes, last month or the month before, that's all we were doing was cutting out all the little images out of paper. And this would have been a perfect candidate. It will do this for you. So you can find that whole tutorial there, but we could also just make a little, so we could add some little hearts over the top if something's, and I always tell people, you know what, especially when if you're new at something, or if you're just kind of playing it by ear and not planning out the whole project. I love to plan out a whole project, but for me, it kind of depends on what I'm doing. And sometimes it can kind of take the fun away. On some projects, it can take the fun away if I'm over planning. If I'm not letting myself play a little bit and experiment a little bit, it can kind of take the fun. Now, see, if I just added little hearts there, now all the stitching is covered. Isn't that cute? So now I can add, I'm not sure who's getting this one yet, but we could add a sentiment. We can add, if we wanted to add love, if we wanted to add buttons, whatever we wanted to add, now we could. But instead of doing that, I think we can try to cut another pattern. I think we have enough time. We can at least get up another pattern cutting here.
Dolly had a question for you. Are you just using, or what weight of cardstock are you using? Like 120?
I'm not sure what the weight is. I'm just using different pattern papers. Absolutely does not matter. You can use whatever you have, whatever you like. Whatever you want to use will be fine. Thin to thick. The machine will cut up to 3 millimeters.
Yeah. And Liz, could the stitching be done with free motion foot? Of course. You just have to, I would say though, for a beginner, I don't know if I would use the free motion because you're kind of moving, but I would practice with that, because then you can go back and forth and decorate those. You could have a lot of fun with that free motion foots. But yes, you could, Liz.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, do I? No, I do not, because it gets very ugly very fast because I don't use that very often. So yeah, when I think I'm going to be a hot shot and pull that out and do it on the paper, I always regret it.
Let's make sure that when you do that, may we do it live.
Oh yeah, well, we can do that. We can make that a thing. We can, yeah, we'll have a new show. It'll be called May Messes Up Sewing. All the things to not do. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, so you see how there's all these, this machine has all of these different flowers. There's so many of them. And in fact, we'll do this one and we'll do, yeah, that'll be good enough. Okay, so it's the same process. You're just picking, and I remember I start at A, so I'm just mentally saying A, B, C, so that I keep track of where I'm at. D and E. And we'll do different ones, and we'll spread everybody out here. Let's see. And I'm not throwing away the paper that we have, the scraps. I won't throw this away. I'll keep using it. In fact, let's see. These two we'll bring back, but now we'll get some different ones too. And there's lots of material. So if you want to do this, but let's say you want to do this and you want to use, I don't know, let's say you want to use some wood paper or like some wood veneer type material, or you want to use, whatever you want, you absolutely can. And what you'll really focus on doing if you're pulling in different materials is, these are all similar thickness. They're probably not all exactly the same paper weight, but they're very similar. So I don't need to worry about setting up separate cuts for each of them. They can all go on the same. Let's see. Those two we're going to just do as they are. And this one we'll cut a little chunk of. So I don't worry about that. But if you were doing wildly different, so if I had, I'm just going to cut these down a little. So if I had, say, vellum, which is very, very fine and very, very thin, if I had vellum, but then I also had heavy cardstock, but then I also had like a sheet of acetate that was thick, you know, so if I'm really mixing and matching thicknesses, what I will do, and we've got everybody on the mat, I will do separate cuts. So I would do.
May, show that mat one more time. I'm just going to bring you up like by yourself just so people can see. Look at all those fabrics, all on one mat and all going to cut different designs. Talk about saving fabric or paper or whatever.
Oh yeah, whatever it might be. I've done this. I save my little felt scraps when I've got felt scraps because I do a lot of felt crafting. So I get a lot of those and I can see. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to scan here. I can see here. Sometimes I'll put a little extra push there after it's scanning to make sure everybody holds down. Everybody should still be good. But I already need to clean this again because I went and got my sweater arm and sat it this whole time while we were doing the sewing machine. My sweater arm was sitting on the mat. So it's okay though, because it will clean up. Let's see. So I'm going to do the solid here. And then again, remember, we can look at the different patterns and what parts of the patterns we want to show if we care. And we can also, so you can also batch. If you're going to make a bunch of these, nope, I need to select. Hello, select, cut, then say okay. You see how quick and easy this is, but if we had other patterns, if we had other things that we wanted, let's say we want to make 6 of these, or let's say we're batching, you know, we want to make lovely little happy cards and Valentines for everybody. Can we do a whole bunch of these? Yes. Could you also just take a basic pattern, like say the heart pattern, cut a whole bunch of hearts and then stitch hearts all over a card? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a cohesive pattern that you're using. You could make up your own pattern as well. I just always think, I feel like, I don't know about you, Angela, but I feel like some of these patterns, they get forgotten. Some of it, like these ones, I always forget they're there. And that I could actually have all of these great little flowers, and I really like the ones that remind me of Hawaii, like the sea turtle designs, and so I always forget about them. They get forgotten, and they shouldn't be because they're fantastic. Okay, so we work our magic, and let's see how tall this guy is. If this guy is still, it is just a little tall. So I could go get another card. And by the way, if you're a scrapbooker, you could put these in your scrapbook. It would be so cute, I think, to have these in your scrapbook. You could also do, I guess I don't have any, but you could do, like, if you wanted to do a tag. I mean, just, it's so limitless how many things we could make and do. Mm-hmm. It really is just by your imagination. And I will post these on my Instagram. I will do a picture of these and post them on my Instagram a little later. Ooh, actually, look at that. That's the backside. I kind of like the backside. Let's use it.
That's cool. I'm actually going to put, for those of you that are new to the show, by the way, I'll put May's website down below so you can find her. I have Brother's website down there, my website. We're always doing creative things. And I know I saw some of you just rolling in saying, where have you been? Now, just so you know, we're on the crafting side today. So if you're new to the Brother Crafting channel, Facebook or YouTube, be sure to like and follow if you're on Facebook. And on YouTube, be sure to follow because there's going to be a lot more coming on the craft side and you don't want to miss it. And I know a lot of our sewing friends like both.
So I've got...
That's cute, May.
And you know what? If anybody's worried about the adhesive on their sewing machine, you can put, you maybe notice, maybe not. I'm mostly putting the adhesive down the middle where we're not stitching. So that becomes really not a problem because there's not going to be any stitching there. So we don't have to worry about it at all. I'm going to trim the top there. And I don't know. I like having design sometimes where it goes off one of the edges. I just think it's got kind of a fun look to it. And this guy, though, needs a little more trim. A lot of times if you flip it upside down or backwards or however you want to think of it, it's a little easier to trim. So there we've got that trimmed. And I don't think we have time to do all the sewing, but we can start it, certainly. All right, ScanNCut, you have to make room. And ScanNCut's like, I'm sorry, this is my table sewing. Your table is over in the corner.
Hey, May, what is your Instagram? Craft with May?
Yes, it is.
Craft with May. I think
Yes. Craft with May on Instagram and Facebook.
Mary was asking that. Craft with May. But also her website's right down below. If you go there, you can probably just click.
Yes, and I've got links to Instagram and everything down there as well. All right, we've got the yellowish
this is
one. I kind of like that. I know this doesn't. The other one I was picking Valentine. Oh, where'd it go? It's already disappeared somewhere onto the table. Oh, there it is. So the other one I was picking Valentine's, and I don't know, but I've even got it in my sweater. But I feel like I like kind of the pink with like the mustard. I think it's a fun combo. It's a little different. And you know, if there's spots like this one, I didn't think I had room for another stitch, so I started to turn the corner. Remember, we can put little buttons, little sequins. We can decorate. If there are spots, if you're new to stitching, or if you're like me and you just make a lot of mistakes, don't worry about it. You can always cover it up somehow. Cute. The other thing I think about when you're using the harder part for me with the longer stitch is gauging when to turn. Because especially on the paper, there's no going back or trimming it. You've made the hole. So I will always,
it's not like fabric. You could have like little chalk marks and guides and stuff like that because it's not going to come off.
Yeah, you really, I mean, and I find that like on fabric, I usually don't have a problem because I'm usually using a much smaller stitch. I'm usually not using this big of a stitch. So I feel like it's a little easier for me to gauge. When it's the bigger stitch, it's eating up so much ground so quickly. I'm not really used to it.
Thanks, Linda. This does look like fun. Edna, yes, you could definitely use fabric to make these cards.
Oh yeah, you can use fabric if you wanted to.
And Edna, on top of it, you can actually cut your fabric on the ScanNCut as well. So definitely everything, just use fabric.
And fabric can be fun on cards. If you don't want to stitch even, you can do different. There's a lot of different ways you can incorporate the fabric into the card, just depending on what your mood is. I think I'm just going to use pink on the rest, but I think we'll do a different pink. Let's see.
Hey, Linda, I didn't leave a link below, but if you look at the bottom of our video, it's scrolling across the bottom with May's website.
Yes, and there's so many options here. And it's so funny because the other thing with Valentine's, a lot of times, like I'll incorporate doilies or little bits and pieces. Maybe if you have some paper Valentines, that can be fun. But any of those paper elements, you can always stitch. Excuse me. You can always stitch those paper elements. The only thing I really say that I do is I always kind of try to make sure if I'm stitching my papers, I try to make sure that I avoid stitching over liquid adhesive for obvious reasons, I think, because of the goo factor. But even if it's dried, it can tend to be a little thicker or cause a little more stickiness. And I know a lot of people will do with their sewing and everything, they'll on the cards and on paper, they'll do like, instead of doing this the way I'm doing it, you could have individually sewn these petals, just the petals, and then go in and just glue the petals to the paper. So if you don't want to stitch through the card, the other thing that you can do is take the card, instead of, I'm working on blank cards because I keep those here in the studio specifically for days like today when we're doing a live show and we just want some cards. But if you're just working on a piece of cardstock, you can sew onto the cardstock and then take that cardstock and glue that onto your finished card so that your card stays nice. So a lot of people will do individual. Ooh, I went a little far there, but it's okay. Remember that. It's okay. It's handcrafted. If it is not looking machine made. It's machine sewn, but it was your hands making it. So don't freak out if there's a minor whoopsie. It'll be okay. And this works. You know what? I sew a lot in my scrapbooks. Now, some people will do with the needle. They'll have a separate paper needle. I don't know what it is, but I don't tend to have an issue with, and I think it's just because the kind of sewing I do or the things I do, I don't tend to find it's too much of a problem for me. But I think if you do a lot of sewing, or I'm guessing if you do a lot of garment sewing, maybe. What do you think, Angela? Do you think that? Because I don't find issues so much with my needle being dulled by my papers.
I sew with a lot of fine fabrics, like thin fabrics, things like that, knits. I usually have a little basket or a little thing where I put my knit needles, my denim jean needles, my embroidery needles. I keep them all separate. And I do have a paper one because of you, because you've taught me that this is really fun. And I keep that one separate. And I usually use it. Everyone was still asking what size needle. I typically use a size 12 because I like to see that hole that's embroidering, and then I take it out and not use it with fabric, because anything with fabric, you really should change your needle quite often, because you can get skipped stitches. But if you're not doing a lot, for those that are watching that maybe do a little embroidery, I would keep your embroidery needles separate and your paper needles separate. But if you're not having skipped stitches, you're fine.
So what I think is I don't do anything with delicate fabrics ever, because I'm just not confident enough with the delicate fabrics. I just don't feel like I'm confident enough, and I don't tend to use it. I tend to use, very sturdy, easy to work with beginner type fabrics. And I think that that's part of it, is they don't require the finesse and the perfection of needle. So I think that's probably a big part of why. And I always keep it in mind, though, if I go like after today, this is enough paper sewing. And actually this week I did a bunch of other paper projects in this machine, and I did a bunch of embroidery into denim. So I think I'll finish my Encanto denim embroidery, and then I think I'll probably check, or at least put a mark. Sometimes what I'll do is put a sticky note on my machine and say, hey, you did a bunch of denim and a bunch of paper, do a test. So that's what I'll do, is the next time I go to stitch, whether it's a little zipper tote or I don't know, whatever it is I go to stitch, I'll just have that note on the machine that, hey, you might want to double check on a test swatch. Is your needle still okay, or should you change your needle?
That's a good idea.
Good job, sewing machine. So this machine for me, what I really like about it, and that's actually my second brother machine. My first I got from a dealer, used. So it was actually a much nicer machine that I could afford, but it was used. So it was a lot less money from my brother dealer. And that's what got me hooked on the brother machine, because I had had so much trouble, and I really wanted to sew, but I was about to give up as a beginner because I just couldn't get anything made. Nothing was getting made. Everything was always tangling. The back, this isn't a tank. This is just too much thread getting caught up, but there were always tangles of thread, and there were always so many problems with what I was making, and it was just really depressing. So I was going to give up, and I went in the dealer to see if I could take a class, and she looked at my machine and said, well, what you need is a machine that'll help you as a beginner. So I always say, just remember that just because, like a lot of things, you want the very most basic for a beginner, you don't want to step up for a beginner, because it's, you want to start at kind of like starting with a bike with training wheels versus starting with a motorcycle. You want to kind of build up. But I feel like with sewing machines, if you can step up a level or two, then those machines have features that just make it so much easier. Like I remember, it's like, well, this one threads my thread. My machine didn't have a threader, didn't have the cutting function, everything was like manual crank. And it was so much work to get anything done. Well, no wonder I was always messing up. Whereas this one, I mean, even the tension for me, at least, like most of the time, it just kind of automatically adjusts itself. And I've never, knock on wood, I've never once had one of the thread tangles from tension issues or anything like that I used to have on every project.
That's a big difference. when you're talking about price, though, you know, with the dealers, and for those of you that are new to sewing, that you're like, I love what May's doing. I'd love to have a machine and do some embroidery like she was doing. Remember, a lot of the dealers will have demo machines. Maybe they've used it in classes. They also teach classes and give you support to learn how to use the machine, but watch for those demo machines. Those are usually,
you know what? That's absolutely so. And that was something, my first brother machine, what ended up happening was it was, you know, a very long time customer of theirs. They also have trade-in. Some of them will have trade-in options. And that's what happened. That's how I got my machine, was that one of their very long time customers had traded up to, you know, and this was, I don't know, 15 years ago, but she had traded up to a dream machine or to a whatever the brother, you know, new machine was. She had traded in her older machine to step up, and they had a trade-in program. So that's the other thing, is if you're ever thinking, you know, go talk to your dealer. Your dealer is your friend.
Absolutely.
So this is what I was talking about. Another way to cover it up is, I just trim my little.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There. And another way to cover it up instead of the way that we did it the first time. Another way is, let's see, to layer.
Looks good.
So we can layer this, and now this I can turn into a card. Isn't that fun?
That's cute, easy to do. Oh my goodness.
And totally. Just think of, I mean, even if your hands, I mean, anyone you give this to, they'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, you hand sewed me a Valentine and you made my card and everything. But it's really not hard. And especially if you know you want to make a bunch, then go ahead, instead of doing what I did and cut one at a time, cut 6 of them, cut 12 of them, whatever it is, cut a whole bunch and use up all those scraps. And then you can just take the bits and pieces and mix and match until you have however many cards you want. And I'm really big on, like, if I was going to make a big batch of these, I would cut, you know, a dozen or whatever it is out of the machine. Then I would assemble them. I would assemble them like this. I would assemble them just, you know, onto a piece of paper that I'm going to stitch on, and then do all the stitching and then glue them all into the cards, fill out the cards. And, you know, before you know it, you could have a dozen or more ready to go.
I absolutely love this. I love this idea. In fact, I just got a Valentine's card from my mother today. Thanks, Mom. And she's always so cute. And I'm looking at this going, I could top that. I could make one of these. Have you seen the price of cards lately? This would be fantastic.
Yeah, then you've got a whole bunch made. And I see Lisa likes my patches. I didn't make these. Or this was a Christmas gift, actually, with Mickey Mouse all over my sweater.
Gosh, but you could have.
It's my Mickey Mouse sweater. I'm so loving mustard color right now. And I saw it, and it was like the one thing I asked for Christmas. I thought, oh, I would love a nice cozy sweater to wear. And it's got the pen. I didn't have to do the work.
Even better. So all of you watching, if you have more questions, be sure to keep them rolling in, because the Brothers Sewing team will be answering for you. But I think we've covered everything. We've talked about needles. We've talked about thread. I love the idea of these cards, and they're so cute. Take a close-up look at that. 2 different cards, 2 different looks, easy to do.
And you can, and I purposely, you know, I know everybody's a little different on what they like to send cards for, but I purposely made a design that I would love one of these for a Valentine. Like, if my thought on the flowers was, it's like a little flower, sending someone a flower for Valentine's Day, but it's a paper flower, so it'll last. But this design, we can use this for birthdays, for Mother's Day. I mean, you name it, you can use this design for it. So It's going to be very versatile for you for whatever it is you want to use it for.
I love this. Everybody's saying, great idea. Great idea. 3D cards are expensive. Yes. And
even just the flat paper ones are I was looking the other day, and it was $4 or $5. And I went, or I'll just go home. Or I'll just go home and make my own.
Go back into the studio. May, thank you so much. This has been so exciting. And all of you that are watching, by the way, I put the hashtags, if you look above, they're not a link, but if you're working on something like this, be sure to use hashtag Brothers ScanNCut or hashtag Brothers Sews. They love to see what you're working on, especially if you do some of these cards before Valentine's. You never know, they might share it. So May, you have anything exciting coming on your YouTube channel anytime soon?
You know what I do? And then next month, yeah, but I when I see you guys in March, it's National Craft Month, and I have a whole bunch of big stuff and a new class coming and all that. So if you're stay tuned to either YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, wherever it is you like to be, to my Craft with May channel, you'll get all of the info first, but there's going to be a whole bunch of demos. And with this ScanNCut machine, I have more projects coming, including whenever I finish adding all my rhinestones and my fun.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
still debating on the front. On the front, I'm still debating if I'm going to do machine embroidery or just more vinyl. I'm leaning towards more vinyl because the fuzziness on this, I just get worried sometimes with the super fuzzies. You know,
I love that.
with my machine, I don't always like to play with. So when I'm looking at that material, I'm thinking probably vinyl on the front. So I'll do some kind of heat transfer vinyl on the front of this, and then that'll be on YouTube. And always more. There's always stuff going on over here, just like you.
Along with your 5K walk, I'll watch.
Yes.
That's awesome. Everybody's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I love the embroidery you did on your jeans, on your skirt too. That was very cute.
I was nervous about that. I've never directly machine embroidered onto clothing before. And I was nervous, but I'm like, I kept reading up. It's like, okay, everything seems to say that denim's a good idea because it's a nice, and it's not a super thick denim, but it's a nice, stable, sturdy material. Okay, let's do it. But it worked. It worked. So now we can add more.
And it absolutely looked fantastic. I'll bring this up for the last little shot here. Awesome.
So
I can hardly wait till next month. Now, by the way, all of you that joined, remember something new with Brother is that the crafting shows will be on the crafting channel, the sewing shows on the sewing channel. So if you love to see May and other things crafting, be sure to subscribe to the Brother Crafts YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, you hit subscribe. You'll never miss a live show. And if you're on Facebook, follow. And if you want to watch this episode again, share it to your page. It's easy to find it. Anything else you think I'm missing, May?
I think you covered it.
I think I did. Everybody's saying awesome project. I'm very excited. Hey, hold that. Is that your denim skirt right there?
Oh yeah, we've got our Louisa.
For those that rolled in late, you got to see
here,
this.
you put the other one up. We can see her.
Oh yeah, here. Let me bring that up. Hold on here. There we go. Oh my gosh, is that adorable?
Isn't she cute? And so I'm just gonna add the little florally designs, not over the seam. I'm not that crazy, but I'll do it on this side of the seam and then over here. I think over here and up here. I just haven't done it yet because I was debating if I wanted it this way or this way. I think this way because then I can get nice and close to her and then it'll be a little farther, but that's okay.
Oh my
gosh,
so
much fun.
Really, really cute. Really cute. All right, May, I can hardly wait till next month. In the meantime, happy sewing and crafting.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.